Victoria. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to launching your career, navigating today's job search with confidence. Taylor for Success is all about confidence, so everything I do is sort of grounded in that. And I hope that you will get a lot of value out of this presentation. Just there we go. So I actually have to close this because I can't see. There we go. So just a little bit about me, just so that you know who's speaking to you and sort of my background to be able to give this presentation. So as Victoria said, my name is Liz Hart. I'm the founder and executive director of Taylor for Success. Started Taylor for Success 25 years ago, almost 26 now. Mainly to empower job seekers to become economically self-sufficient. That is my mission, and we do it through three different interrelated programs and services. The first one is the one that we are most known for, which is our career closet for men and for women, which I'll get into a little bit detail about that in a minute. The second is Reimagine Your Career Program, and the third is Boots to Suits. And so before we get started, I also want to mention that I do tend to talk fast, so I'm working on slowing down. So if I am going too fast or you can't hear me, please put in the chat so that I'm aware. I don't want you to miss any of this information. And I will probably say this throughout the presentation, but I will have handouts for a lot of the information. I do encourage you to take notes because I think that that helps with the information sort of sinking in. But you don't have to take detailed notes because you will get handouts after the presentation. So as I mentioned, we are most known for our career closets. Through a partnership with Mass Hire Metro North Career Center, we're fortunate enough to have four locations in the greater Boston area. The first one is in Malden, which is where our administrative offices are. And the next one is in Boston on Malcolm X Boulevard in Roxbury. We also have a location in Woburn, in West Cummings Park, and then one in Cambridge, Alewife Brook Parkway. Each of these locations are accessible by T. The only one that's a little tricky is Woburn because Woburn is Woburn, and it's it's kind of hard to get to sometimes, but you can get there by T. It's going to take a little while, but you definitely can get there. And each of the career closet locations are set up as a little boutique where you go in, it looks like a store. You're matched with a volunteer or staff member of Taylor for Success who will work with you to find interview outfits. And anyone who attends a workshop of mine um, automatically gets added to our mailing list. So I will reach out to Victoria for email addresses so that you can, if you want to make an appointment to get some interview clothing for free, I encourage you to do that. We have a really great selection. The clothing comes from companies that do clothing drives for us. We have strict quality control so that everything is clean, it's current. We steam everything before it's put on the racks, and because we want to make sure that you feel really confident in the clothes that we give you. Um, the way you look, as you will hear later on in my presentation, really does boost your confidence. It sounds like a very small thing, but I have seen people transform before me when they put on a an interview suit or just a new outfit will help to boost your self-esteem. So we're really emphasizing that, and we'll help as little or as much as you need. If you feel comfortable going in and finding something, then that's fine. You can just go ahead and shop for free. So the second program is sort of what I'm doing today is our Reimagine Your Career program, where I do monthly workshops on career development. I also have guest speakers come in and talk about current issues in the workplace, whether it's on financial literacy or how to develop a growth mindset. It's something that any person who is on my mailing list is entitled to attend, and all my workshops are free. The last program is geared to veterans. It's my Boots to Suits program, which typically happens in November, so that I am focusing just on the needs of veterans. They get a workshop, a free headshot, and a full day of working on how to transition from military to civilian jobs. So this is the agenda that we're going to go through today. If at any point in time you have a question, you can feel free to stop me. I do not mind that at all. If I'm not being clear and you need a little bit more clarification, Victoria, feel free to just let me know in the chat if there's a question. Great, thank you. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the 2026 job search landscape. We're going to look at what are the in-demand jobs and the top skills for 2026 and beyond that you need to pay attention to. The next thing will be an overview of the job search process. And we aren't really taught how to look for a job in school, right? But there is a process and a strategy for finding a job that a lot of people overlook. They think that just send a bunch of resumes out there, maybe network a little bit, and something will happen. But there really is a process to all of this that will make you more successful. And with that, I will talk about a job search toolkit that I think everyone should have, some necessary materials to help you prepare for your job search. You don't want to leave this to the last minute because you never know when an opportunity is going to come up. So I'll give you some idea of what should go into this toolkit. And then we'll move on to places where you can find a job. Spoiler alert, 70 to 80% of all jobs are found through networking. So I will say this over and over again. I know it sounds counterintuitive that, oh no, I know that people have gone to job boards and found jobs, and that does happen. It's not that it doesn't happen, but some of the jobs that are out there are not posted. Being an employer myself, I know that I like to hire people that are recommended by other people. That's where the networking comes in. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then my 25 years of expertise in professional presence we'll also talk about too, because I would not want to leave this presentation without talking about how important it is to develop your professional presence. And so, again, I just want to let you know that I will have handouts for all of these. So don't worry about missing any information. So with job search, sometimes you just can't see the forest for the trees. Job search can be especially difficult and nerve-wracking, and you just don't know where to start. There's just so many different avenues that you can take. So I'm going to try to help you sort of narrow this down a little bit so that you'll be more successful in your job search, especially where you're in the start of your career and not really sure of where you want to go next. So when I was looking at the landscape and you'll always see like on LinkedIn or articles about the top jobs and so forth, but I think you have to take that with a grain of salt, right? So a lot of them they use a certain criteria for top jobs. So when I was preparing this presentation, I thought about targeting roles that would be good for people starting their careers, that might match your skills, and help you stay competitive, especially if it's sort of a first real professional job. So that's how I came up with this list. And what I did is I went to ZipRecruiter.com and I put in a certain criteria, and this is the list that I came up with. Now, if you go to ZipRecruiter or Indeed or LinkedIn, they're going to have different lists also based on what employers are looking for right now. But if you don't have all of those skills and education and specifications, having a list of top jobs is not going to help you, right? So you need to sort of narrow in on the criteria that's going to help you get into a job, or a career right away, versus trying to get a lot of experience behind you first, right? A lot of people that I see, although they want to start careers, and I definitely think getting focusing on a career versus a job is very, very important. But as an employer, I know that it's always better to be working and searching for a job than be unemployed and not and be searching for a job, because employers like to hire people who are already working. Now, if you're not working and you're in job search, like number five, doing an internship or volunteering is really, really important. Just as so long as you stay busy, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So when I did the search, these are the five jobs that I came up with, which I think have a pretty good starting salary. I mean, it's still hourly and it's part-time, which would then give you opportunity to do job search outside of your working, the hours that you're working. Data entry clerk, pretty good at 18 to $21 an hour. And again, depending on experience, education, so forth. What I really thought was interesting was office administrator was 20 to $24 an hour. I thought that was pretty good. And there are paid internships out there. This one was September to April, 16.25 to $21 an hour. I thought was really, really good. If you can find a paid internship, please try to do that. But any internship is good because it gets you the skills and experience that you would be looking for. And talking about skills, skills are in two different buckets, right? There's soft skills and there's hard skills. Soft skills are more personal and they are skills that more relate to you and what you can do. They reflect your attributes. They're skills such as communication, adaptability, teamwork, flexibility. These are the skills that all employers want. Okay. And these are also the skills that you can take from job to job. So these are the ones that you really need to focus on because they will be with you throughout your career. Other skills are your organizational skills, maybe your time management, I like to put in work ethic. I just recently hired someone who has an amazing work ethic, and she works hard. She's part-time, but she works hard for me. She's only 20 hours a week, but she really works hard for those 20 hours. That impresses an employer. And that's something that will always be there. Being on time, for the start of the workday. If your workday starts at 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock or 1 o'clock, that's not when you come in. You come in 15 or so minutes before so that you can get yourself settled before you start working. That's stuff that will impress an employer. Now, your hard skills are more job specific, right? They're the skills that you learn as you're doing the job. They're technical skills. If you're repairing equipment, you're a plumber or you're a carpenter, whatever, those are the skills that are specific to that particular job that you probably may or may not take to the next job. But I will tell you that employers are more likely to train for job specific skills, those hard skills versus the soft skills. Employers are taking taking for granted that you have soft skills, right? That they're already there. They're not going to be able to train you how to communicate better or adapt better. Now, does it mean that you can't improve on those going forward? But it's something that you already have to have that foundation of, okay, I know how to work in a team. I know how to be flexible, and I communicate as well as I can. You can always improve on things, and these are soft skills are something that you can improve on throughout your career. But you're going to have at least a base level to begin with, that employers are going to look for, and then they will be willing to train you for the hard skills. And before I forget, when you're looking at job postings, remember those are wish listed, right? If they have 10 different items that they list, that's what they are hoping to get. They would settle for five. And interesting fact, women, if there's 10 criteria, and if they don't meet each of those criteria, all 10, they won't apply. Men, if they have two, they'll apply. So my recommendation is, if you have at least one, apply to the job, okay? Because your soft skills may be so good that the other ones will be something that the employer may train you for. So let's move on to any questions before I go any further, just making sure. Okay. So when we're talking about job search strategy, again, you're not trained on how to conduct a job search. That's what these workshops are for, thank goodness. But it is a process, and following a process or a strategy in your job search is one way to keep you on track, and it will hold you accountable. If you're just doing this sort of as you feel like it, if you're unemployed and you're like, okay, well, I'll do some job search today, maybe take off tomorrow because it's a nice day or whatever, you're more likely to fail. Um, if you have a specific strategy that you're following, not only will you succeed in finding different jobs, and I always like to tell people, especially when you're interviewing, your job then is to get a job offer, and then you can decide whether or not to take the job. So your job and a job search strategy is to get interviews and then get job offers. Um, you need to have hard deadlines that you keep so that you are accountable. What is really good is if you have an accountability partner that you can kind of check in with and stay on track with. But it takes all the messiness of applying to new jobs out of making chaos out of this. You stay on track. Some people say trying to get a job is a job in of itself, and they're really right. You have to take this very, very seriously, and have a certain process that you'll follow. The first thing that you should do when you're job searching is career reflection. So it's sort of getting to starting where you are and getting to where you want to be, as Jack Canfield would say. You have to think about your background, your skills, your abilities. What type of job do you want? It's sort of like you wouldn't set out on a road trip without a map, right? So your career reflection is a map, and it's a way to narrow things down. Now, if you're out there looking just to find something to pay the bills, that's fine. But career reflection is just that. It's the difference between looking for a job and working and focusing on your career, right? I've got a really good handout that gives you 10 actionable steps for career reflection. It gives you steps for making goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, taking into account things that maybe you have done before in your career or your job that you didn't like to do. For instance, way back when I was first starting my career, I was a single mom, and I thought, well, I will just work in a daycare center. I know how to take care of kids. This will be great, right? Not really. This is something that this is not my area of expertise. Um, I love to take care of my own kids, but other people's kids was a little tough for me. So I know that's something I wouldn't want to do anymore. So, you don't want to be looking at things that you're like, nah, I really don't want to do that, because you're not going to be happy on the job. So again, search while you're employed so that your prospective employer knows that you're not sort of just sitting around waiting for a job to come. You're taking something to keep your skills sharp while you're looking for that opportunity that's going to build on your career. The third one of the strategy is to tap into your network. Again, we're talking about network, but people who are starting job search think they don't have a network, and you have a vast network, even without trying. If you think about friends, relatives, the person that you get your pizza from, people that you meet just casually at a family gathering, this is your network. You never know what these people know or who these people know until you start to talk to them. Now, of course, I will talk a little bit later about using LinkedIn to help expand your network, but don't think that that's the only place where you can find and develop your network. Your network is people that you meet every single day. You just don't know. Um, I am your network. If you reach out to me, if you're looking for something, if I know somebody, I am happy to connect you. I do it all the time. Mentoring and helping people grow their career is kind of what I do. So, my number one suggestion into tapping into your networking is when this is over and you get my contact information, shoot me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. Say, I attended your launching your career workshop, and I would love to connect with you, and I will connect with you. It takes a little practice, and if you're an introvert, I know the word network kind of scares you a little bit, but it's really just talking to people. That's really all it is. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention was, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about AI and the use of technology in your job search strategy. AI is nothing to be afraid of, and as I heard recently, we're really early in the game. So, I mean, I know it seems like it's changing really quickly, and it is, but we're still early enough for you to be able to figure out how to use AI and to become at least somewhat competent with it. And it will help you immensely in your job search with tailoring your resume, tailoring your cover letter, doing research. AI is a tool. That's all it really is. It's just another tool to help you find the specific job that you're looking for and to prepare for it. You can use AI to help you with interview questions. You can just put in, I'm applying for a position as a data entry person. What type of questions will an interviewer ask me? And it will come up with a list of questions, and you can prepare that way. So just think of it as a tool and nothing to be afraid of. And last but not least, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, you're going to have to tailor all your application materials. It takes a lot, um, but it's something that is just so necessary and will set you apart. When hiring managers are looking at your resume, once you make it past, their screening process and it sort of gets to the hiring manager's desk, they'll be able to tell immediately if you have uh, really looked at the job description and tried to match your resume and cover letter to the job description. Because if you haven't, they'll pass on it. I think I saw recently there's, over 100 applications for one position. It's tough out there. So the best way for you to stand out is to tailor your application materials, and we will talk about that in a little bit more detail. And again, there will be a handout. So let's talk about the job search toolkit and review what I think are necessary materials to prepare you for your job search. So this is everything that when you're thinking about, okay, I'm done with my internship, I'm ready to get out in the job search market, or even before your internship is done. Do I have all these things in place so that I'm ready? Because you never know. I know that you're in a internship, but you could be made an offer to stay. I have hired interns who worked out really well. So you just never know, but you want to be ready. You want to be ready. And there are many, many tools that you can have in your toolkit, but these are the ones that I really wanted to focus on today so that I think that in terms of sort of the basics, these are the things that you need because you just don't know and you can't predict when opportunity is going to knock. And whether you're actively applying for jobs, whether you're approached by a recruiter out of the blue, because this typically does happen, or an internal position pops up that you weren't expecting, you want to have these essential tools ready and able so that you can respond quickly to a opportunity that comes out, that you don't have to scramble around and think, okay, let me update my resume, let me update my cover letter, let me look at my LinkedIn profile. This stuff should already be done, already be ready. Let me figure out what interview outfit I'm going to wear. It could be the night before. An interview comes up and they say, can you come in tomorrow? You want to have make sure that everything is all ready. You want to know what your elevator pitch is, and go over interview questions. This is something that you don't want to leave to the last minute. And it's also something that you're going to be using for your whole career. None of the things that I'm talking about today in this workshop is a one and done. It's something that you should always have at the ready because you just don't know. Even if, you're in a career and you're happy, just make sure that you're always ready, that your resume is always up to date. And one way to do that, before we sort of get into the details of that, is when you're starting a new job. One tip that I tell everyone is get a blank notebook, right? And every time something happens that's good, a new skill that you learn, think of it as sort of your job journal so that when review time comes around or you have to apply for a new job, you can remember the things that you've done on your previous job more quickly if you write them down rather than relying on your memory. A lot of things are going on. You may get nervous because this is like the one opportunity that you've been waiting for. Get a notebook, write it down, or, if you're not analog like me, make a file on your computer, and just keep it updated so that you can remember these things. It's also a great way to update your LinkedIn profile. So let's look at each one of these individually. So your resume and cover letter. Not all job applications will ask for a cover letter, but if they do, make sure you include one, okay? Because that's one of those paying attention to details. If it says resume and cover letter, send a resume and cover letter. It should be thoughtfully crafted. I got a resume and cover letter that was so to the point that it gave me pause. So this is where that AI comes in. I thought, wow, this person really understands my business, right? But then I thought, wait a minute. I think this was written with AI because it was just too perfect. So again, AI is a tool, but don't rely on it solely. Use your own thoughts and your own personality when you're putting together a resume and cover letter. And a hiring manager can see right through it. They really can. Um, but again, don't leave this to the last minute. Make sure that you're creating a stock resume that has everything that you have ever done, sort of, with going back 10 years or 5 years, um, so that you can quickly tailor it to the job posting that you see. So you're going to always have one resume that's sort of like your base, one cover letter that's your base, that gives the employer an idea of who you are, what you can do, what your skills and abilities are, that has been checked and rechecked for spelling errors and so forth. I mean, we could do an hour on just how to prepare a resume, what goes into a resume, and so forth. But just know that it's not something that you can do overnight. And it's not something that resume and cover letters are not something that you should do alone. You should always have somebody else look at your resume and cover letter, because no matter how thoroughly you think you have looked at something, if you give it to somebody else to look at, they will spot an error in a minute, because it would pop out to them just like it would to the hiring manager, but you've seen it so many times that you're just glazing over it. So it's always important to have somebody else look at it. There's the basics that go into a resume, your contact information, a way for somebody to get in touch with you, your email, maybe your cell phone number. What's really important right now in resumes is to have a link to your LinkedIn profile, so that the hiring manager can go right into your LinkedIn profile if they haven't already, and look at that. That's one of the screening processes that they use. Another thing with resumes is when you're listing your companies, don't just list them, but have active links, so that the employer, if they want to, can go into the link for the company, so that they can see what the company does, right? So you may know what the last company that you worked for or 3 or 4 years ago does, and you just assume that other people do too. Well, they may not. Make it easier for the hiring manager by having a live link there that they can just click on and then find out what that company does. Okay. Um, Cover letter should be no more than a couple of paragraphs. If it's a full page, more than likely, unless they're really, really interested in you, they're not going to read it. They're just going to glaze over it. But I will say that in most instances, hiring managers will look at the cover letter before they look at your resume, because they want to know if, okay, should I take the next step, look at the resume and see if this is a person that I really want to talk to or not. And they'll get a sense of the person by looking at your cover letter. So if you're in a time management crunch, I would say focus more on your cover letter than your resume, because again, your resume should be done anyway, and you just may want to tweak it with some keywords that the employer might be looking for, which you can find in the job description. I will have a full handout on top tips for putting together a resume and cover letter. But resumes and cover letters are very subjective, right? People, my way of writing a resume and cover letter may be different from somebody else's. What I will say, though, I think I know especially in the beginning of your career, I wouldn't spend the money to have somebody do it for me. I would use AI as a tool to get it done. Because I don't think that having somebody else write your resume and cover letter is going to let your personality come through. Because I think if you pay someone to do this, or if you just use AI and you don't go in and make tweaks to it, your personality is not going to show. So just be very cautious with that. Now, when we're talking about LinkedIn, This is going to be your number one way for hiring managers, recruiters to find you. This is where people are going to go first before they go anywhere else. When you go on LinkedIn, if you don't already have a LinkedIn profile, there is I don't know if I can, I think if I go out, I'm going to mess up my presentation. But if you just Google how to set up a LinkedIn profile, you'll come up, and I'll put it in my handout with a video that will take you through each of these in detail. But essential elements for LinkedIn is a professional photo is number one. Don't rely on someone taking a photo of you and then you kind of cropping it to use for your LinkedIn professional photo. It's very obvious when somebody does that. I know it costs to get a professional photo done, but if you're going to spend money, that's where you want to spend the money. There's also AI tools that you can use now to make your sort of photo that you took with your iPhone a little bit more professional. I mean, at the very least, try to do that because it will show you people are very visual, right? And so they'll look at your photo and say, I think I will continue to go and find out more about this person. Is that a question in the chat, Victoria?
No, that was me. We're gonna offer free headshots, free professional headshots in June for everybody.
Lovely.
So don't spend money now, but find something that will make do, and then we'll have that for you in June.
That's great. That's such a great offer. Take advantage of that. Wonderful. So you'll have that all set. You'll also need a good headline, something that really helps to make you stand out. I am, and you always do it in first person, right? Have a good about section, something that talks a little bit more about you. And then, it's your experience skills. One thing I will note is that your LinkedIn profile should not look like your resume. They should be two separate and distinct tools, right? With LinkedIn, you can go into a little bit more detail. You can fill up a page, you can get recommendations from people, you can list all your certifications. When you're setting it up, you should have a custom URL, one that, talks about you better than just numbers and whatever. One thing that is sort of I don't know, I wouldn't say controversial, but the open to work banner can work for you or against you. To me, the jury's out on that, right? I think that open to work does help if you are in active job search. But say if you are in subtle job search, and so what I mean by that is you're working and part-time for XYZ company, but when you're not there, you are looking for a full-time position. If you have an open to work banner, I think that if your current employer sees that, they may have a problem. So, I mean, listen, employers know that if you really want a full-time position, and you do because it comes with benefits and a higher salary and all that, they know you're looking for work. But I don't think you have to be so blatant as to put open to work there. But again, it's personal preference. I wouldn't do it, but I know that it does work for some people. So you're just going to have to use your own best judgment with that. I don't think there's any right or wrong. I don't think that there's the majority of people who use open to work will find a position. I am always concerned about upsetting the person that I'm working for right now. Um, and how is it going to look to them? Again, I'll go back to the person that is working for me right now. She's working part-time. I realize that she is looking for a full-time position, and I'm very sensitive to that. But on her LinkedIn profile, it does not say open to work. It just is just her profile. It's It's just something that's not necessary. And if you're really good at job search, which I hope you will be by the end of this presentation, I don't think you need that because you're going to be actively looking for work. I think if you are, I think that that can make you very passive, right? So you've got this banner and you think that things are just going to kind of come to you, and that's really, unfortunately, not how it works. You have to kind of get out there and shake the bushes, as they say. So let me just see if there's anything else I want to put on LinkedIn. Uh, nope, I think that's it. So your job search checklist is sort of the main document that you'll use when you're in job search. Is going to have a checklist of everything that you need to make sure is up to date, that is tailored, that you don't want to forget about. And I will have a handout that will have a lot of different items on it. But let me just give me 1 second. I want to tell you what it says. It says items such as update your LinkedIn profile every month, every 3 months. Double check your resume. Is your cover letter up to date? If you've moved, have you changed the particulars of how people can contact you? Things like that. Have you checked your interview outfit lately? Have you, if you've not looked at your interview outfit or tried it on the last 6 months, it may or may not fit, things like that, just to keep you accountable for what you're doing in the job search. And so, with that, let's talk a little bit about your interview outfit. I am going to go into a lot of detail later, but I want to make sure that you understand that this is part of the toolbox, right? So, having a professional contemporary suit on hand and ready for an interview is going to be essential. So I know a lot of interviews now are conducted virtually through Zoom, but um, being on Zoom doesn't mean that you're not professional, right? And sometimes wearing a full suit when you're on Zoom makes a really big impression on an employer, and it also gets you in that interview mode. So you want to make sure that you have an interview outfit, whether you come and see me at Taylor for Success or not, that it's up to date, it's current, it's clean, it's ready to go. So you don't have to worry about this. This is something that you really should not have to worry about. Of all the different things on the checklist that you'll see, interview outfit should not be one of them. Um, a plug for us is that it costs upwards of $200 to put together an interview outfit if you go out to the store and you try to purchase it yourself. I am a big thrifter, and so spending a lot of money on clothes just is not something that I do anymore. I just don't do it. So come and see us at one of our 4 locations, get a contemporary, really, really high quality professional interview outfit that's yours to keep. You don't have to return it, and it's going to fit you, and it's going to help bring out the best in you. And I did forget to mention before that even though my Woburn Career Closet is difficult to get to, it's worth the trip. And this is why, because I have a dedicated volunteer on Wednesdays who is a professional image consultant. That's what she does in her day job. And so if you go to Woburn on a Wednesday, you'll meet my volunteer, Amanda, who is amazing, and she will help you put together an interview outfit that will just rock your world. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, she has a way about her. She looks like a fashion model, so you could get a little intimidated talking to her, but she is the most down-to-earth person you will ever meet. And I encourage everybody to go to Woburn. If you can wait and go on to Wednesdays and go to Woburn and find a way to get there, find a way to get there. Every closet that I have has really good clothing, so it really doesn't matter which one you go to. But it does matter whether or not you're having a professional image consultant work with you or not. This is something that people pay hundreds of dollars for and you can get for free. So just a little plug for Amanda. Um, with that though, people take for granted how important an interview outfit is, but there's a quote that says you never get a second chance to make a good first impression, and that it takes between 5 and 7 seconds for someone to have an opinion about you. I think it takes even less. I think as soon as you see someone, if you're a hiring manager, you have decided whether or not you're going to hire that person or not. Recruiters will form impressions within seconds. And so once that impression is formed, and that's usually around your education, whether or not you're going to fit in this particular position, whether or not you're friendly, whether or not they think if it's a hiring manager, whether or not you'll fit into the company culture, all within a few seconds. And so then what happens is you have to convince them otherwise. So if their first impression of you is not good because of what you're wearing, because of your confidence level, because of your attention to detail, then you have to start all over and try to impress them. So, one of the reasons why I started Tailor for Success is I did not want people who were in transition from different jobs, who were transitioning from incarceration or single moms or single dads, having to worry about the one thing that will immediately make an impression on a recruiter or hiring manager is what they're wearing. So that is something that you should not have to worry about at all. When you come to Tailor for Success or wherever, if you're getting your interview outfit, make sure that the clothing fits you. It does not matter. People focus on the size of the garment. The size of the garment does not matter, mainly because what happens is every designer is different. So a size 10 Ann Taylor is going to be different from a size 10 Talbots or something like that. With men's clothing, it's pretty much uniform, but don't let the size of the garment matter to you so much that you're not getting something that fits you. You need to make sure that your clothing isn't wrinkled, that you're not overdressing for an interview, or underdressing in that respect. You should always dress for a level above where you want to be. Just because you're showing respect for the interviewer, the job, and their time that they're taking to interview you. You want to stay with neutral tones. You want to watch your grooming. You want to make sure that you're not wearing too much cologne or perfume, things like that. When you're in an in-person interview, shoes will reveal more than most candidates realize. One thing you won't get from me at Tailor for Success is shoes because they really do have to be the best that you can, and it's just too difficult to get shoes donated that are in really good condition. But if your shoes are scuffed, dirty, whatever, it shows attention to detail. So people do look at it. Accessories, you don't want to have a lot of accessories on because they're distracting in an interview. Women, if you're wearing earrings, you don't want them to be dangly because if you talk with your hands and move like I do, then it's gonna distract your interviewer. But above all, you need to be comfortable because when you're comfortable, it affects how confident you're going to be. And confidence influences your vocal tone, your whole demeanor when you're in an interview. And when you look ready, you feel ready. So think about how you're presenting yourself to a hiring manager or to a recruiter that goes beyond just your cover letter and your resume. So when we're talking about elevator pitch, an elevator pitch is something, again, you need to have ready before the interviewer, before the interview. And every time I say elevator pitch, I always have to preface it by saying an elevator pitch is this. And it's called this because if you end up in an elevator with someone, by the time it takes to get from one floor to another floor, if it so happens to be someone that you're talking to that may have an open job or whatever, I always like to say when you're going on an interview, your interview starts the second you walk into the building. You never know who you're going to be next to, like in an elevator. You need to convince somebody to say, I'd like to learn more about this person through your elevator pitch. Okay. So it's something that because you're always going to get that question in an interview that says, tell me about yourself. Even though they have your resume, even though they have your cover letter, even though they've looked you up on LinkedIn, even though they've searched social media to find out more about you, they're always going to ask you, tell me about yourself. Okay. Um, I used to answer this question differently than I answer it now. So, what I mean by that is, and we'll talk about this probably later in interview questions, but in case I forget, the tell me about yourself question is always a standard question. And if you're really comfortable with the question and comfortable interviewing, like before I started Tailor for Success, I worked in large law firms and did a lot of interviewing to advance my career. Interviews never made me nervous. They just something that it's just something that doesn't make me nervous because I always looked at interviews as, which it is a two-way conversation. I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. So if I'm asked that question, my pitch is always, okay, tell me about yourself. I'd love to, but I want to know exactly what you want to know because it can go many different ways, right? Somebody could be asking about your hobbies, which is not going to be on your resume or your cover letter, right? They could be wanting to zoom in on one particular thing. The way that I answer it now is I try to give a summary that emphasizes who I am as a person and as a worker. So if I was going to interview at another nonprofit as an executive director, I would emphasize the fact that I've got, over 25 years of experience running a nonprofit and taking it through grassroots startup up until being a sustainable nonprofit. And then I would think the interviewer would then say something like, well, that's interesting. Can you tell me some more? Basically, what they're asking with your interview, sorry, with your elevator pitch is, why should I hire you? Why should I hire you for this position? That's what you have to keep in the back of your mind. You're not just reciting what's on your resume. You're not just reciting what you put in your LinkedIn profile. Your elevator pitch is your pitch to them as to why they should hire you in the first place, why they should be interested in you. If your elevator pitch is all about you and not about them, your interview is pretty much over at that point, right? They're interviewing you not because they want to find out more about you, but they want to find out how you can ease their pain. They've got a pain point. That's why they're interviewing you. Can you solve it? Right? So with again, I'll use myself as an example. I had a pain point of I love to do these workshops. I love to go out in the community and speak and whatever and run my nonprofit, but I was getting distracted by the fact that I had to work with clients in the closets. So I hired someone to fulfill that pain point so that I did not have to do that anymore. When I hired this person, she came in, she knew exactly what I wanted, no more, no less. That was my pain. Can you go to each of my four closets when I need you to, and can you work with clients? She could do that. She was hired. And within the first couple of months, that was what I was evaluating her for. Every employer who puts a job posting out there has a pain point. It's something that they themselves do not want to do, cannot do, or whatever. So your job is to fill that pain point and show them that, you know what, I can help you with this. You should hire me over this other person. I can help you with this, and this is how I can help you with this. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to go to interview questions, and then I see it's coming up on an hour. We'll take a quick break, if that's okay, Victoria? Okay, great. So there are common interview questions, like I mentioned. Some are standard, just basic, tell me about yourself. But some are, and those are sort of called, the icebreaker warm-up questions. Um, but then there's ones that are more behavioral based or situation based. Tell me about a time when you X. Tell me about a time when you dealt with a customer who was unhappy. Um, how would you prioritize multiple assignments? Things like that. That's when, the interviewer is trying to dig deep and see whether or not you can actually handle this job. Um, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's, future looking. These are interview questions that you should always have a ready answer for, because one thing that you have to keep in mind is that people who typically, other than HR people or recruiters, interviewing is not part of their day-to-day job. This is not what they do. They run companies, they're logistics managers, supervisors, whatever. But interviewing is something that's taking them from their day job. So they try to make it as easy as possible for themselves. Some interviewers will use a standard list of questions that they ask every single applicant, and then they have like a rubric, and then they decide whether or not how high you score on it and so forth, to make it easy so that it's not biased toward one person or another, so everyone gets the same questions. There's some interviewers who don't prepare ahead of time. There's some interviewers that really they need somebody, they're a little desperate, and they're like, when can you start, right? So you just don't know what type of interviewer you're going to get. If at all possible, I always try to find out who my interviewer is going to be, so that I can do a little research myself on them, because you'll always get that ending question. So you get it's like a bookend, right? The first one is tell me about yourself, and then the last one is do you have any questions for me? You're always going to get that. And no matter how skilled somebody is in interviewing, those two questions will always come up. And in order to have questions ready, that's where that research comes into play. Researching the company, and going beyond surface level research. Anybody can go to a website and look at what the company does, where their locations are, who's the head of the company, et cetera, right? But the savvy job seeker will then do a Google search on the company. And this is where sort of your familiarity with AI prompts and questions come into play. If I'm researching a company, I ask specifically, interviewing at Microsoft. What is their main focus right now? And this is silly because people know, but what is their, who are their top competitors? Um, what direction are they going in now? If it's a smaller company and you know the person's name, Google them, see what comes up so that, there may be something that you have in common, that you can ask when they say, do you have questions for me? I think one question that I always try to get people to ask is this, and again, interviews never made me nervous, so I would ask this question and I wouldn't have a problem doing it. So this might take a little bit of practice, but you'll see why I asked this question in a second. So when they say, "Do you have any questions for me?" What I typically say is, "Yes, I do have a couple of questions. One of them is specifically, is there anything in my background, on my resume, or how I answered questions today that would not make you hire me for this position?" The reason why I asked that question, and again, you can frame it however you feel comfortable. Um, you could just say something as, "Yes, how did I do? Is there anything that would keep you from hiring me?" However you want to say it, because as soon as you leave that interview, if there are questions, you cannot answer them because you're not there. It's a very rare interviewer, hiring manager, or recruiter that will come back to you and say, "I forgot to ask this question about your background when you interviewed," right? But if you leave and that interviewer does have a question, they'll say, "Yeah, I meant to ask you about X, Y, and Z." Then you can address it directly. And this is especially good for if you've got a gap in your resume, um, a gap between your current job and your last job, or the reason why you've been unemployed for 10 months, right? Oh, well, this is because I was going through an internship and I was focusing on that. There's a gap because I was a main caretaker to one of my parents. There's things that you're not going to put on your resume that may be questionable to an interviewer that they may or may not want to ask, right? Or that they may have said, I want to make sure that I ask this question, but they may forget, right? But if you sort of prompt them at the end, this is where they're going to ask. This is also a really good tactic to use if you have one of those in person, the dreaded panel interview where there's three or four people sitting in front of you and they're all asking you questions. If you have a panel interview and there's one person who is not asking you questions, I can guarantee that's your biggest obstacle right there. I've been in that situation where, and again, it takes confidence and it takes practice. But once you leave, you can't ask the question of, "I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I answered everybody's questions, and I noticed that you did not ask me a question. Is there anything I can answer for you?" Once you leave, you're gone, right? He or she is not going to say, "Let me email that person and ask the questions that I didn't ask during the panel interview," right? So, with interviewing, my biggest advice is just to take it as a conversation between two people because that's exactly what it is. It's a conversation. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. You'll get a sense of the company culture, of how they treat their employees. And if your instinct gives you red flags, you might want to walk away. You might want to walk away. But focus when you're answering these questions and when you're in the interview, focus on getting a job offer and not getting a job. Because there's going to be a lot that goes into whether or not you accept the job or not. And I think if you have that stuck in your head, you won't do well in the interview, right? If you're thinking about how much you need this job, how much, it's important to your family versus I just need to get this person to offer me the job and then I can decide. Because you may have two or three offers at one time and you've got to choose between the two. So hopefully that makes sense. Um, I think, yes, perfect. Let's take a break. How long should we take, Victor? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Yeah, no, if I think 5 minutes is good, just a bathroom, coffee,
Yeah,
water.
coffee. Okay. All right, great. So I'll see you back here in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Great.
11:11. We'll see
11:11
folks
sounds
there.
good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Away. Yeah, they'll be here.
Okay, great. So before we go to the next segment of where to find a job, I just want to make sure that I mention when you're answering questions, interview questions, there's something that's called the STAR method that I want to make sure that I talked about. STAR method. Stands for situation, where so this is a framework for answering interview questions. S stands for situation, where you're briefly setting the scene, where you provide enough context for the interviewer to understand what happened in this particular instance. So this is so you would use this method for behavioral question. Tell me a time about a time when you worked with a customer who was unhappy. Tell me about a time when you were on a team and were able to contribute to this team's success or whatever. So you would start with the situation. How did you work with the team and how did you contribute? Whatever the task was with this team, explain your responsibility or your goal in the situation, the task that you're working toward. A is action. So, what steps did you take within the team or with the customer or so forth? Describe specific steps that you took. That's where you can really shine. This is the heart of your response. And then R is result. What happened? What happened at the end? Did you contribute and increase sales 10%? Were you able to calm the customer down and so forth? And and again, I will give you a handout on this. And this works particularly well because it helps you organize your thoughts and not ramble on when you're talking to an interviewer. It helps you to tell a more focused and compelling story. um, Interviewers love stories. They love stories. They want to hear stories. That's the best way to no, you don't just robotically answer a question, you tell a story. People love stories. So it will demonstrate that you can reflect and learn from your experiences. And that how past performance is a good indicator of what you'll be like in the future. So if they see that you have gone through something that could come up in a particular job that they're hiring for, and that you've already handled that. You've handled a disgruntled customer. You worked on a team. You had to be flexible because of being short-staffed. They can tell how you handle that, and it's a good indicator of how you handle it in the future. So think about some of the behavioral questions that they'll ask. Tell me about yourself, or whatever, and then build your star stories around it so that you have practice with doing it. Okay, so now we're just going to switch to. So this is really great information, Liz, but where do I find a job? How do I find it? Guess what? Network, network, network. 70 to 85% of jobs are found through networking. Um, a good place to network is, again, people that you know. If you're in school with your people who are in class with you, you can go to networking events. There's a whole procedure of going to a networking event, especially if you're an introvert and you're like, I can't walk into a room full of people, and how do I start up a conversation? One of the tricks with that is you're at a networking event and you always go towards where the food is or the drinks are, because that's where people kind of stop and mingle. And you could just say, geez, I'm so glad that they have something to eat here, and then you just strike up a conversation. It's basically just working on being friendly. Networking is not something where you go up to somebody and say, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? That's not networking. That's begging for a job, right? Networking is getting to know someone. Um, I found so many opportunities through just talking to somebody. Though the world is very big and Massachusetts is very big, it's very small. Everybody knows everybody, right? And you'd be surprised, where they say 6 degrees of separation between you and somebody else, that you may have something in common. You may work out at the same gym, or you may take your kids to the same park. Whatever it is, you're building a relationship with that person. Now, what is really good to do in terms of networking is what they call an informational network. So you're not informational interview. So you're not necessarily interviewing for a job, but you're starting to build your network. So you're reaching out to someone because there's always like, what do you do for a living, right? And so they'll say something and it just happens to be, something that you might be interested in, or not. They may know somebody that knows something that you're interested in, right? And you say, you know what, could I buy you a cup of coffee and we can just talk a little bit more about what you do? People love to talk about what they do. When you're networking with someone like that, whether it's in person or it's online, always have something in your back pocket that you can bring to the conversation so that it makes them want to talk to you. So I don't think that you can build a network with people that you really have nothing in common with, and really you're trying to get something from. It should be a give and a take, is what a network is. So even when you're looking for a job on LinkedIn and you're trying to build your contacts, and they say, over 500 or whatever, build them slowly so that you can reach out to these people and say, I've got a question about this, or you posted about this. Can I ask you, can I take 5 minutes of your time and just follow up with you on this? Or you send out a request to connect with someone, always put a reason why you're connecting with them. I see that you work in a law firm. I'm thinking about going to law school. Can I talk to you for 5 minutes about this? What it's like to be a lawyer, what it's like to be an engineer, or whatever. People love to talk about themselves. What they don't like is when someone says, okay, well, that's wonderful. Can you help me find a job? Again, you're building a relationship, and it may take time, but people will remember you if you don't immediately ask them for a job, if you just are generally interested in building a relationship. And one way to build that relationship is through research, researching the company, researching the person. There may be a particular company that you're interested in working at. Find out as much as you can about that company, um, so that when a job opening appears, you're ready for it, right? You've already done your research on this company. You know you want to work for this company, and you know why you want to work for this company, because that's going to be another one of those sort of standard questions. Why do you want to work here? Why do you want to work for this company in this position? Especially if it's a position that you have not held before, right? You want to do as much research as you can on that particular type of position, so that even though you have not done it, you know what's involved in it. And with that, you may be able to find an opening that, again, was not posted. Again, that networking can lead to someone saying, I know I have a friend who is hiring for a position just like what you're looking for. It's not posted yet, but let me reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in talking to you. That's where that networking 70 to 85% of jobs being filled, that's where it comes from. When I was looking for my assistant, I got uh, messages all over LinkedIn. I know this person, she's looking for a job. I know that person, whatever. Those people went to the top of the list in terms of checking them out and looking at their resumes. So whatever you can do to get an advantage to help yourself stand out in the job market, the better. But again, I also I want to make sure that I go back to it all starts with a plan. You have to know where you're going and what you're going after. If it's an emergency situation, you have to get a job right away. That's different from starting a career that's going to carry you through, you know, 2 to 5 years from now, whatever. Okay. Totally different. Job boards are good, but if you go on LinkedIn and you look at different job postings, you would be amazed at how quickly people apply to things. A job is posted an hour ago and it already has 100 applicants. It's really difficult to find something through a job board. It's not impossible. I don't want to give the impression that it is because there are people that find jobs that way. But don't forget the other places where you can find positions. Job search clubs. There's a job search club that I know of that's managed by the Tewksbury Library. It's for 55 plus people, but there's all different kinds of job search clubs. People network within that. If you find a job search, and again, that's that accountability where everybody's sort of in the same boat. We're helping each other out. I hear of something that I'm not interested in, you may be interested. Again, that's that networking, building that network. With this particular job search club, people are always putting their LinkedIn profile URLs in the chat so people can connect. It's a great way to build a network. You just don't know where, you know, you want to work at a particular company. You find out that somebody knows somebody at that company. They happen to be in, one person is in your network. You reach out and say, you know what? I know you know so and so. Do you think you could make an introduction for me? It's not, can you help me get a job at this company, but can you make an introduction for me? So it's not so much a cold call like they say in sales. So hopefully that helps. I will give you a handout on how to conduct in-depth research on a company because that's really going to help you stand out. The more you know about the company, I think it's really easy, especially in the nonprofit sector, to say you're you're interviewing for a job at a nonprofit, and the interviewer says, "So what do you know about what we do?" Well, I know you're a nonprofit. Well, yeah, that's great. Or I know you're a food distribution agency. Well, that's great, but what more do you know? For instance, a company, a nonprofit here in Malden called Bread of Life is looking for help in their food distribution. They're looking for someone to drive the truck and greet people when they bring in donations and so forth. If you just say to them, yeah, I know that, Bread of Life is a food, they work on food insecurity, that really doesn't say a whole lot. But if you know that you just built a new building where you were, rather than working out of basements of churches, now you're in your own building and you have low-income apartments on one floor, all combined into this building. That says a lot. That says that you are really interested in the nonprofit, what they do, where they're going, and so forth. And don't be afraid to look at a lot of nonprofits will post their financials on their website. Don't be afraid to look at that. Don't be afraid to look at what events are coming up. Whatever it is. And, even in the for-profit sector, don't be afraid to look at where it says about us to learn more about the company. And then take that offline and maybe do a Google search about one aspect of it. Maybe they say that they're very socially responsible company, but if you do a Google search and you don't find that they are, that's something you probably should need to know. So there's many places to find a job. There's many ways to find a job, but you need to start with a plan so that you know where you're going, right? So that you know which avenues and which leads to follow up on when you're out there talking to people, networking with people, building your LinkedIn profile. You don't want it to be so generic um, that you don't stand out from the crowd, right? So hopefully that makes sense on how and where to find a job. Don't just rely on one thing. Don't just rely on LinkedIn. Don't just rely on job boards or your network or research. Use all of them. And there's more. There's more that I'm sure that I haven't even listed here. Um, but job fairs, I didn't even put down. Go to job fairs. They're virtual job fairs and in-person job fairs. And with job fairs, there's a whole method to going to job fairs and not just walking in. I've been to enough job fairs to know that you can tell who's prepared and who's not prepared, right? Who knows who is going to be there, what companies are going to be there, which ones they want to target, and so forth. So there's more than one place to find a job. I just want to make sure I'm not okay. Developing your professional presence. So when we talk about professional presence, it's not just what you wear to an interview. It's how your resume looks, what your communication style is like, how you project yourself in person, your social media presence. I cannot emphasize enough that when you're in job search, to clean up your social media presence. Google yourself and see what comes up, okay? Look at your Facebook, your LinkedIn, Instagram, all the platforms that you're on, and make sure that there's nothing that could be offensive. Um, Things come back to bite you. I mean, it may seem kind of fun to post that you're out with your friends and XYZ happened and you had a couple drinks or whatever, and it's kind of fun and whatever. That's fine. Maybe it was a bachelorette party or something, but something like that could come back to bite you. It really can. The Most employers will take a look at your social media presence to see if they can find something um, on you that tells a little bit more about you. Because when you're in an interview, I mean, let's face it, you're on your best behavior. But when you're on social media, maybe not so much, right? So when you're talking about your professional presence, especially when you're shifting from a job that pays the bills to a career that you're going after, all of these things come into play. How you speak, how you are in person, whether you're friendly or not, what your resume looks like, interviews. Going back to sort of resumes, I can't begin to tell you how many resumes I see lately with pictures on them. We just don't do that anymore. You don't put your picture on your resume. It's like it's not even from people from different countries, where they do put their picture, but people who are Native Americans. I just don't get it. It's just no fancy colors and things like that. Don't try to stand out with your resume like that. Just put the facts down there. That's really all that you need. Okay, so I want to make sure that I leave time for questions, but I also don't want to leave you without my tips for interviewing with confidence. I think everyone who enters an interview should be prepared enough if you follow all the steps that I talked about previously, where you're confident. Because if you're really nervous, it's going to show. One way that you can interview with confidence is to work on your professional presence and your appearance, to wear clothing and accessories that are appropriate for a professional workplace. That also means when you go to a job fair, right? If you show up at a job fair dressed very casually, that person standing behind the table at the job fair, that's your first line of defense in terms of that's your first impression with the company that you're going to make. Um, I can tell you when I go to job fairs, and I'm not the only employer that does it, somebody comes up and they want information about any openings. I'll make notes on their resume. I'll make notes on a piece of paper, so that I can remember how that person presented themselves. So focus on making a good first impression, because again, it's very difficult once you've made that first impression, if it's a negative first impression, to change it to a good one. And prepare in advance, because preparation is key with this. Again, I can't say it enough. You never get a second chance to make a good first impression. If you've got to climb that hill back from making a negative impression, it's really, really difficult. And this even starts when, if you're in-person interview and you're meeting the receptionist, treat that person like you would the interviewer, because that person is the gatekeeper. That person will make or break your job, because when you're done with your interviewer, they'll come out and they'll ask the receptionist, how did they treat you? Were they friendly? Um, did they treat you with respect? Did they show up 15 minutes early? You know, or did they just arrive just before I came out to see if they were here? Things like that. Um, Here are, and you'll get this handout, 16 appearance shifts that increase confidence. And this all has to deal with basic grooming that people take for granted. I will say they really do. Polished hair, groomed hair, polished shoes, groomed hair, intentional color choices. That again is, if you go to Woburn and you meet my volunteer Amanda, she can tell you what your colors are. So, and it does make a difference. Some colors will really wash you out or make you seem really vibrant. Um, New England, you want to dress in layers, definitely. You want to have a professional bag. You want to practice your interview in the interview attire. Um, because you want to mirror that confidence in your rehearsal. You do not want to leave this for the night before, if all possible. Um, you want to dress for the role you want, not the role that you had. Okay. So just pay attention to these just little appearance shifts. They're not major, but they do make a really big difference. Again, you want to, not the night before, but do your homework on the interviewer, understand what type of interview it's going to be, check your directions if it's going to be in person. Um, if it's and we'll talk about this a little bit more in video and virtual interviewing, check your surroundings, your connection. Um, I always tell people now, this is a really great time if you're interviewing, because before, say during COVID, you couldn't always get really good surroundings to do an interview in, right? You're in your home, cats walking across the computer, kids screaming, whatever. But now there's no excuse for not having a professional surrounding. And what I mean by that is pretty much every library in every town has a room that you can reserve for half an hour or an hour just using your library card. And if they don't have it in your community, you can go to the Boston Public Library. Everybody who lives in Massachusetts can get a free Boston Public Library card. You can reserve a room. If you know you have an interview coming up, you could go to a library in a room, just yourself, professional surroundings with a good connection, and conduct your interview. When I have to really concentrate and write, I always go to the library. I have been since I was in high school. And I was in the quiet room of one of the local libraries, and this poor guy came in. There were three or four of us already there working quietly, but he had an interview. And he asked everyone in the room, do you mind if for, a half an hour, I've got to do this virtual interview? And, the poor guy had to sit in the room with, but you don't have to do that anymore. You can get your own private room. I've already talked probably too much about researching the company, playing it safe, do mock interviews. Indeed has a really good program on their site for doing mock interviews, and watch your body language. Body language is key when you're interviewing. And so let's just switch back to what do you wear when you go in an interview? Um, Oops, hold on a second. Uh, Even though after COVID, everything became very relaxed and very casual, there are still some instances where knowing what business professional is important. If you're if you have an interview at banking or a law firm, some law firms, because some law firms have gone business casual, but even still, even if the company, the bank or the law firm has gone business casual, I would still err on the side of caution and show up in business professional, because they want to know that you know what business professional is. Because if you have to meet with a client of theirs, they want to know you know how to dress, right? And again, it's dressing that one level above. So business professional, what is it? It's a two-piece suit. The colors now, it used to be you're always safe wearing a black suit, but black is just too severe now. Black, think Undertaker, unfortunately. It's now charcoal or navy. Navy blue is a very uh, comforting color, a very color where people want to approach you, they want to talk to you. So look for, neutral colors like that. A white shirt, dress shoes, black or brown. But it is a suit. It's a two-piece suit with either, if you're a man, a jacket, dress pants, or a woman, it's a jacket and dress pants or skirt. Um, and we can talk about skirts, but interviewers really do like to see you in a skirt. That's all I can say. And I can back that up with statistics. So business casual. So this is good for nonprofits, education, so forth. If you feel comfortable enough to wear business casual. Business casual does not mean messy. It means business casual. It's wearing a jacket with casual pants or a skirt, professional dresses with a jacket, nice shoes. You're polished, but you're comfortable. It's not how you would dress if you were going out to the grocery store or something like that. That's just casual, sloppy casual. At least if you're me, I don't care what I wear to the grocery store. But if you are dressing business casual, you are still dressed up. And if you're in a video virtual interview, business casual is probably going to be your friend, right? And again, it's going to be top to bottom. It's not going to just be your top, okay? Casual is casual. Um, unless, yeah, I can't even think of an instance. Until you start the job, I would always go for business casual. I would not use casual unless I had gotten the job and I was already working there. But even still, if the environment is casual, it's tech company, business startup, whatever, small nonprofit, I would still be as professional as I can without wearing a suit, right? So you're dressed down, but you're still neat. You're individual. You're wearing dark jeans versus the light jeans, casual pants, um, sneakers. Sneakers are really big right now. A friend of mine wrote an article about how wearing sneakers with even dresses now is acceptable because they got dressed up sneakers, which I am really happy for because, in my younger days, I wore the big heels and I just cannot wear heels anymore. So wearing sneakers with everything is great. But again, they can't be the scuffed up ones that, you wear to the grocery store or to do laundry. They have to look good, right? So you have to pay attention to that. And again, not really until you're on the job. Again, you're going to dress at a level above, so it's going to be business casual. Oops, hold on a second. Video interviews, I'm going to say a little bit about this, a little more about it because you got to have that professional background. Check your surroundings. Keep it simple. Nice blouse, nice business dress shirt, maybe a jacket, but dress head to toe because you absolutely don't know what could happen. And if you have to get up and you're wearing pajama pants or something, that's it. You're done. You're done. So, and you're like, this is not going to happen to me, but it can happen. If it happens on TV, it can happen to you, right? Um, and always check the dress code of companies, but regardless, whether you're interviewing or starting a new job, your appearance is the first thing that others will notice about you. The first thing. So pay attention to that. As we round up on 12, I want to leave you with some next steps that I think might be helpful to you. I just want to reiterate that you want to start with a plan. You need to know where you're going before you get there. You need to really think about what type of job you want to have, what type of career, how much more training you need, how to build your network, so forth. You need to know yourself. You know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Do you like to work in a team or do you like to work alone? Are you better in a busy, fast-paced environment like a coffee shop or a slower paced environment like a library? You need to know yourself because you're spending, a good chunk of your day in this position. You really should be happy. And you have to get comfortable with networking, whether you're looking for a job or not, because you just never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. And this is not a one and done. Develop a growth mindset. I have on my YouTube channel a whole hour or so workshop on developing a growth mindset and how important it is that you can't say stagnant, right? You always have to be learning. You're always learning, you're always growing, and that's one way that you can avoid not having a career or a job because you're always prepared for what comes next. I mean, whoever would have thought AI was going to be, something that we all had to learn, right? But if you have a growth mindset, you know that something's going to come up, right? You're always looking for what is it that I need to learn next. And so keep your mind open and ask me questions if you have any. Thank you all for your patience with this workshop. Feel free to come off of come on camera and ask me any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Liz, so
You're
much.
welcome.
Anyone, I know people have questions. What are they?
Yeah. And it's a lot of information. A 2-hour workshop is like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's so much. But maybe there's something I didn't go over that you might have a question about. Uh, I've been doing this 25 years, and even before when I was working at a law firm, I was the person people came to when they wanted career advice. This is what I do. This is what I love. So feel free.
I have a question. Um, so I know that when I finish this position, I'm most likely gonna have a time where I'm not working before I return to another job, and that's part of my plan. But I
Yeah.
wonder, like, how would you recommend that, like, you communicate that clearly to an employer when you, like, are ready to return to working? Or like, how do you note that on your resume or materials, anything like that?
Yeah, I think that first of all, you should be able to fill that time with something. So like volunteering or If not, if you're not in the position to volunteer somewhere, you can't find a volunteer opportunity, be ready to answer that question as to what took you so long, or they won't say it like they won't be like that, but they'll say, why is there a gap on your resume, right? Be prepared to answer that question. No matter what position you're in, or if the gap was because childcare responsibilities or caretaker, whatever it is, or you just couldn't find something because it is tough out there, be prepared to answer that question because they will ask. Um, and answer it in a way that shows you in the best light. So something like, after I finished my internship, I didn't want to jump into a job right away because I wanted to do some career reflection. I wanted to think about where I wanted to go next in my career. And so I took some time to really think about it so that I would be prepared for the opportunities that will come my way. Does that answer the question for you?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Erica, I'll even add one more thing. You can put that right into your cover letter as well when you're
Yeah,
applying. And that way, you don't have to hope that you get the chance to talk to them to explain it.
right.
Um, we have a question in the chat too. Someone's wondering how to handle the question, where do you expect to be in 5 years? It's a frankly absurd question, and I think that question is becoming less common because of how absurd it is. But yeah,
Yeah, it is. It is. More likely you'll get a year, 2 years, right? Um, I always try to, I think we all have things that listen, I would like to be independently wealthy in 2 years. I'm not going to say that in an interview. I'm going to answer the question that relates back to where I am, how I can advance within that company. So if I'm coming in as, say, a patient care assistant, I could say, well, in a couple of years, I want to be a nurse practitioner or something like that. Something that relates to what I'm interviewing for now in the industry or the company that I'm in. Or you could be really bold and say, in 2 years, I really want to be your right-hand man or woman. Again, it takes confidence to do that.
Any other questions, specific scenarios you're all struggling with or challenges?
And you will get my contact information, my email, links to my YouTube channel and so forth. You can always ask me a question. Yes, Juliet.
Hi. Yeah.
Hey,
I have a question. So going back to networking, because networking is something that I'm trying really hard to focus on at the moment. I think
great.
one of the avenues that I typically focus on, especially is school alumni,
Yeah.
and reaching out to people that are at my university, which is really helpful. And generally get a lot of positive response rates from that. But I'm curious whether or not, because now that this is my first, like the Commonwealth Corps is my first full-time position out of school. And now that's what's popping up on my LinkedIn is connections related to where I'm serving. So Project Citizenship. They're like, this
Yep.
person worked at Project Citizenship. So I guess I'm curious whether you think it's welcome to reach out to people that worked at the organization that you're currently at and seeing their perspective on where they're currently working and how they got there, if that's something that's taken positively or typically a no-go or frowned upon.
I think it's something that's going to be taken positively. If I get requests to connect all the time, and this is where that, do you want to connect with or without a message? You always put a message. I see that you went to I got my master's at Cambridge College. Whoever reaches out to me who went to Cambridge College, I will give time to, or Northeastern, I will give time to, because you're always going to give 5-10 minutes, but you have to find a connection to that person. Not just, oh, I see that you're CEO of XYZ company. I'd like to connect. That's not going to get you a connection. It's not going to get you a connection. You need to have a reason why you have a connection with them, even if it's just as superficial as I'm an alum of the same college that you were. That's enough of a connection for someone to say, click, okay, yep, we can connect. And that starts the conversation, right? You start to follow them on LinkedIn, see what they're posting, comment, like, share. That's how it becomes, because we all get when we're posting on LinkedIn, we all see who is liking what we post. We see if they're sharing it. And if I'm telling you, if you share a post of mine or somebody else's, that is gold. People love that because it boosts the algorithm. Did that help?
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
I see. You spoke a little bit about asking current employers or former coworkers to make an introduction for you while you're applying to a company that they have contact within. Could you speak about how you would start that conversation? You spoke a little bit about make an introduction. Yeah, very casually. Very casually, where you might ask a coworker or supervisor, you know a lot about me, but I know nothing about you. Where did you go to school? Where did you work before? So forth. And then they might mention a company and say, geez, I've heard of that company. Do you still have contacts there? Would you be willing to make an introduction? Um, I won't ask them for a job, but I just want to speak to them and maybe do an informational interview. Or do you have someone um, that I could do an informational interview with? Most professionals will have somebody that they know that will take 5 or 10 minutes, especially if they're asked by a contact of them, a friend of them, to do an informational interview. Because usually, unless you're really good at informational interviews, it's a one and done. You take 5 minutes or you have a cup of coffee and you talk about yourself. People love it. Ask me for an informational interview and I'll talk about myself for 10 minutes. That's easy. That's easy. So just very, very casually, just say, I'm coming to the end of I'm looking, I'm looking for a full-time job. Is there anyone that in X industry, so maybe it's engineering or whatever, is there anybody that you know that I could do an informational interview so that I could get a little bit more experience? Uh, without being, yeah, ban the box. That's a really good question. That's a legal HR question. I think the way I understand it now is that they can't put on a job application whether or not you have a criminal record or not. However, most employers will do a query. So again, you need to be prepared to talk about that. Or again, like Victoria said, you might want to put it right because employers are going to find out stuff anyway, right? So you might as well be upfront. And that to me shows the type of employer they are. If they're willing to give somebody a second chance, that's a really good employer. And I think I'd want to know that right up front rather than trying to hide the fact that I might have a background that I'm trying to hide. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if that helps or not. If you need a more detailed answer to that, by the way, my husband is an HR professional and I can ask him and I can get back to you on that if you'd like. How far back do you go in terms of uh, without running up against age discrimination? 5 years. I wouldn't go back 10. I wouldn't go back 20. You want to go back maybe 5 years, and it could be all one company, and that's fine. But you don't want to go too far back because you could run up against age discrimination, or you've had multiple jobs in a particular, say, 5-year span because of life circumstances, and you just don't want that to be something you have on your resume.
I have a follow-up question for that. So you think it's okay or there's no problem to have all of your references from the same organization, or is it better to kind of diversify those?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You may get asked, could you have two separate references? They may be specific. But having multiple references from one place, I think shows how good of an employee you are. You got a lot of people who like you, and that's always good.
Anything else? These are great
Yeah,
questions.
they are. I love it. Love it.
Right, I think
Okay.
that's it.
Right. Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
Christina, yeah.
Sorry.
Please.
Oh, I was just about to type in the chat, but I wanted to make sure I got it in quickly. How would you go about writing a good headline for your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, it needs to be like like I said, like a first person. So, for me, I could write something like, hold on, let me think for a second because I just saw some really good ones and I want to make sure I give you a good one. Um, so if you're looking for a particular position that you want to specialize in, so like for instance, I do grant writing on the side. So I my headline would be something like if I wanted to build up that business would be experienced grant writer of experienced grant writer getting $1 million awards or something that's going to catch someone's attention right away. Or if you're an artist or something, a copywriter, um, experienced copywriter with whatever, you know what I mean? Something that's going to be really, really eye-catching, that's going to stand out. What I would suggest is when you're on LinkedIn, up in the search bar up in the left-hand corner, I would type in, like, say, for instance, grant writer, copywriter, or, engineer, see what other people are doing. And when you find a good one, just sort of adapt it to you. Again, this is where your chat GPT and AI tools come in. Help me write a headline for my LinkedIn profile that in the tone of an experienced copywriter looking for a new opportunity. It will give you a headline. So you work with the prompts so that you get a really, really good one. I have seen these types of headlines. Can you help me write one that will stand out from the crowd of these specific people? Again, I think AI is a tool. It helps you not have that blank page. And again, it's always going to be something that you're tweaking. You're always going to tweak it. Always going to tweak it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else while we have Liz here? I will also the word slipping my brain because aging, but I will give a shout out to her YouTube channel. If there are topics that you want a little bit of a deeper dive, there's a lot.
Yeah.
She has pre-recorded webinars already on the YouTube channel. So you can go check those out on your own time as well.
Yeah. And
And
about that too, a lot of the ones that were done for me, like I did, a recruiting company did a interview boot camp, which was fantastic. I think it's a couple of years old now, but in all of the webinars that were done for me by professionals, working professionals, they all list their contact information. So again, another way to build a network. I saw on Taylor for Success's YouTube channel that you did XYZ workshop. Could I take 5 minutes and just talk to you about whatever? That's going to build a network. Or connect with them on LinkedIn. I saw that you did a workshop for Taylor for Success. I'm connecting so that maybe we could build, whatever. Now I'm just making stuff up, but you know what I mean.
great. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This was
You're
wonderful.
welcome. And I wish you